Moving right along and feeling fancy free. Now we move on to Sweet Baby Inc. I don't think we've talked about them for a bit, but they've been in the news. Former Sweet Baby Inc. Employee implies developers did not want to hire him after working for Kim Beller's company.
Shocking, right? I mean, it's like I'm sure that the people that used to work for Enron, if they had that on their CV, probably had a hard time getting a job at another company.
A former Sweet Baby Inc. employee, Kazuma Hashimoto, revealed that developers did not want to hire him because he worked for the video game consultancy. Hashimoto was recently featured in an article written by Zachary Small in the New York Times, where he claimed that Japanese people were not upset about Assassin's Creed Shadows, and claimed that much of the pushback against the game was, and one of its main characters, Yasuke, was being done by Westerners using translators. He told the New York Times it was people in the West who were upset about seeing Yasuke as a samurai. Small added that Hashimoto explained that many of the negative online comments written in Japanese appeared to have been roughly translated from English. I don't know if that's true. That's what he's saying. I somehow think, wasn't the Japanese government doing investigation into this? These claims?
Yeah, because here's the problem. And you know who actually covered this really well? He hasn't, no pun intended, historically been a big gaming channel, although he might start delving into a little bit more because he does enjoy gaming himself. But the Metatron, who, like I said, mostly talks about history and language. He's a polyglot, so he really gets into, translations and mistranslations. And he said, look at all of the games in this series. This one took place at this time, and it cast this nationality of a person. This one, and so, like, if you're gonna set a game in France during the French Revolution, maybe make the main character French, right? If you're going to cast it during, the American Revolution, yeah, maybe a former European colonist, right, or whatever. If you're going to do it during the Viking era, the Nordic people, yeah, maybe make the person Norse, right?
Right.
They said it in Japan, and it's a person of color from Africa. Yeah. And you think the Japanese aren't going to be a little bit put out by that? Think it through, people. If you wanted, there is no reason you couldn't set that game at some point in history in Africa and had, an African character. That's the established trend that you're doing. That is what you call diversity, right? But when you go and you say, we're going to set this in feudal Japan, but your main character is not going to be Japanese, you are insulting everything about that culture.
Yeah. And it's not true as proven. This is why he's having a hard time finding a job. He's a proven liar. Okay, about the translated comments. Yes. Anyway, in recent Twitch stream discovered by YouTuber Smash JT, we know him, Hashimoto, provided more details with the New York Times, saying a couple months ago, the New York Times actually got in touch with me to ask about Assassin's Creed, which I was like, yeah, reception's honestly like kind of positive. And a lot of comments you'd see under videos were like straight up like Google Translate comics, which is pretty obvious. However, he then noted how annoyed the Japanese people are with certain aspects of the games. And like people are like annoyed with some of the inconsistencies and issues in Shadows, which is like the buildings and stuff being wrong or certain clothing and whatnot, right?
Yeah,
or the
fact not the problem that people had,
or that the fact that the art team basically stole a sign from a reenactment troupe in Japan.
That one was a real black eye, and that just shows the level of research. We'll just go online and swipe something off of Google Images.
We got deadlines. Come on. Cut us some slack. Anyway.
Exactly.
And that's actually like pretty common when you're working with such a large team of artists. Sometimes they're sort of given the direction to Google.
It's common. That doesn't make it any less illegal. But yes, you're right. It is common.
He elaborated, it's more like you're working with a team of people and they speak multiple different languages, and whether or not they can communicate with those is an issue. And that's just become part of game development.
Yeah.
Later in the stream, Hashimoto claimed he did not work on Assassin's Creed Shadows. He said, I can say that I did not do any consultation work on Assassin's Creed Shadows. The stuff I did with Sweet Baby, I will probably never be able to talk about just because that's the way of games development works. So yeah, it's really, really weird.
Yeah. And just to be clear, we're going to get back to these elements of Assassin's Creed in a moment. We've got another article coming up where we really want to dig into what's going on in the gaming industry and why this matters.
So I have a feeling that I'm going to get blamed for changes and decisions made on a game that I worked on that weren't even that I didn't even know about or wasn't even aware of or not even part of. He shared, because when you're a consultant, they just kind of pull you in. They ask you for suggestions, and whether or not those suggestions are actually taken is up to the director. It's up to the director. People don't understand how much power a director and producer have in a studio and whether or not they will facilitate those changes. Still, later in the stream, Hashimoto revealed that developers did not want to hire him given he was former Sweet Baby Inc. employee. He said, there are definitely jobs that I had where people have seen the fact that I worked for Sweet Baby, and it's been a year since I've worked with them, and they're just there's just a contractual bias.
I will point out that this is the same thing that I've said about, actors working in Hollywood. Well, it's not the actor we don't like, it's the writing, it's the film, it's the whatever. And it's no, I'm sorry. If you take a role, you should know what you're getting into if you're a professional. If you're a dumb kid and you've never acted before, yeah, okay, maybe. But you need to start paying attention and start being able to put on your big boy pants and say, you know what? This film, I don't agree with. This is going to be a career killer. I want nothing to do with it. And in a case like this, you need to look at the company and go, yeah, this diversity thing, this whole thing that this company is about, not a good idea. If you don't do that, I'm sorry. You're tacitly saying, yeah, I agreed with it and I supported it. And so sorry, you got to live with those consequences, pal.
Well, he goes.
I said, it's the same thing that I said about the people that worked for Enron, right? You worked for Enron and the company closed because they were doing all kinds of illegal crap and embezzling and screwing with the market. And guess what?
I had nothing to do with it.
Yep. Too bad.
Okay.
Because what are you saying when you put something on your resume? You're saying, look at my history. I worked for this company. Isn't that a good thing? No, that's not a good thing, right? That's like saying, I work for, I don't know, pick whatever top 100, company, right? You're saying it because you want the prestige of that company. Well, I'm sorry. If you put that company down, you're also putting on the stink of that company too.
So he didn't work on Assassin's Creed Shadow. Why was he running cover for it?
Yup. Good question, Nate.
All right. But anyway, he later goes on to say people will literally be like, hey, are we going to get harassed for hiring you? And I think that really sucks, he said. See, it's the gamer's fault. That instead of we'll protect our employee, the employer or the potential person giving you the contract will be more concerned about that.
See, that's all backwards. Protecting your employee who's already working for you, that's one thing. Protecting somebody they don't know that they haven't hired yet, F you, that's not their job. Go back to Sweet Baby Inc. and get them to stand up for you.
All right, but
if they're not doing it, then why are you loyal to them?
Jesse Corrado is confused about this.
Okay, how can I help you with that, Jesse? What
he implies that developers didn't want to hire him after working for Kim Belair's company. That's what he's saying. That was the big head.
Yeah, and we're all going, no poop, Dick Tracy. You worked for a company that is destroying the industry, and people look at you and go, yeah, no, I want nothing to do with that company. I want nothing to do with people that came from that company. You know what? Maybe that's a good pivot to the next article.
Yeah, because maybe Jesse's not too familiar with Sweet Baby Inc., so let's go ahead and get into the next article.
Yeah.
Crazed Sweet Baby Inc. employee says their goal is to burning the games industry to the ground. I often wonder that the people that end up hiring these firms and they're like, "Oh, that's cute," and I'm thinking, no, he's not. He's being literal when he says this.
Yeah.
He would like the match. Shout out to this is from what is it? Smash JT, right?
Smash
Okay.
JT, yeah.
Shout out to Kershay for the find of a 9-year-old video in that park place. The heads up. Wow. Was it eye-opening? In a beyond shocking admission during the Game Developers of Color Expo, a crazed Sweet Baby Inc. employee by the name of Cameron Wild, who identifies as non-binary, shocker, revealed a controversial and troubling agenda to burn the games industry to the ground, among other insane thoughts. The video was titled "How to Get Away with Murder, Subverting Genre Expectations." I mean, wait, what? Within the last name, so aptly titled, named Wild, I almost wondered if they call themselves this ironically, as you'll see. Wild works at Sweet Baby Inc. with the made-up job title of narrative designer, and is a
Hold on a second. I want to go back to the question that came
Yes.
up from Jesse. So they're upset about African samurai. Now I don't know who the they is you're referring to, but the problem is exactly what I said. Every other game in the series, they set it in a country,
and they pick someone from that country to be the lead.
And they pick someone from that country.
Even so, in the one that took place during the American Revolution, it was a Native American.
Right.
I forgot what tribe we belong to, but that's still someone from.
That's someone States. That belongs in that setting.
Yes, that makes sense in the setting. Yeah.
If you are going to bend over backwards to find somebody like Yasuke, who there is a lot of debate. And in fact, who did a great bit on this and a deep dive into the history on this was Metatron. He's like, yeah, no, he wasn't
an actual samurai.
He wasn't. And
Nobunaga liked him. I think he handled things for Nobunaga, but he was not an official samurai. But they're claiming. But there was a book that came out years ago called The Black Samurai, and I even thought it was a real thing too. I mentioned this
and it's kind of not. And in fact, when you start digging into that history, it's a little bit more offensive than what they may have intended. You don't want to necessarily bring attention to this former slave who was brought into the shogunate as a novelty, and dressed up. And no, this is not a good representation. This is not what they want. Then you go even further, and my understanding is in the game they imply that this supposedly historical figure had certain predilections that the real person may or may not have had. So now they're potentially slandering this person. Okay. Maybe you'd be better off doing what they did with every game that came before this and making it an actual fictional character that doesn't have a real historic analog that is actually from the location that you created. If you wanted an African character, you should have done Assassin's Creed, taking place in. I would have loved Assassin's Creed taking place in Zulu, Africa.
That would have been interesting.
That would have actually been a great one.
But they
didn't do that. So you don't get to play a Japanese samurai. If you're Japanese,
I get the impression
everyone gets their representation except the Japanese, is what they're basically saying.
But I had another point. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I remember in the trailer for that how King Alfred of England, I think, is portrayed as like the bad guy in that game. And I'm thinking, why is he being a bad guy? Because he's trying to protect his country from invading Vikings.
Well, if you're playing the Viking side, then yeah.
I guess. I don't know. I'm not.
Remember, to the Empire, the rebellion are the bad guys, right?
I understand that. I'm sure the colonists were too, but I'm just saying I don't know. Anyway, but let me.
Well, that's an excellent point. If you were playing the colonists in the Revolution, then the British would be the bad guys, right?
Yes. Well, I hate to say this, history tends to be a little more nuanced than that, though, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it does. But it doesn't have to be when you're playing from a very specific perspective. Right. When you're playing from that specific perspective, the other guy's the bad guy. It's just all there to it.
I just wonder if maybe, though, the team has countries they like to bash on and countries they don't, but I'm not positive.
You're probably right about that, too. I won't take that away from you.
With the last name so aptly titled, okay. But they've worked on major titles such as Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, Alan Wake 2, The Crew, Motorfest, and even God of War Ragnarok. Yeah. In the presentation, Wild made bold statements about the power of storytelling, claiming that the stories told in video games serve not just as entertainment, but as a means to push debate and reshape collective values. A little more than what CEO Kim Beller seems to let on whenever she chats about what they do and how they simply just suggest stuff. One slide revealed their ultimate goal, burning the games industry to the ground. This is not a vague metaphor, while its intent is clear here, signaling an insanely radical approach to changing the industry by upending its current structure. Yeah, but we still have more Assassin's Creed to talk about.
Yeah, I would say. But what I basically want to say about this particular article is that this is the cultural vandalism we've been talking about. And they've said the quiet.
In this case, it's not even American culture, though. They're going after another countries.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. These are globalists looking to undermine any culture that they see as in any way subjugative or colonial or whatever it is, right? And the example I bring up is the Mao's Great Leap Forward, right? Where the student uprising was critical of everybody, and you were this, you were that, and you deserve to be deplatformed and lose your job and be beaten in the streets. And you see them trying to do that here in the US, as Gina pointed out, 4 or 5 years ago, right? And yeah, we see it happening. A whole group of people that are a particular color and gender and political opinions, they're trying desperately to deplatform. Luckily, we have something in this country that many other countries don't have. And that's the Bill of Rights in our Constitution. We are a constitutional republic, which puts limitations on our government, limitations that other governments don't have and haven't had historically. Because we had founding fathers that saw this potential and built this in to protect us. And we're not, a lot of people like to rip on our founding fathers. Old white guys, they say. You know how old these old white guys were? 20s, 30s, maybe 40s.
Yeah, you didn't live long back then.
Yeah. If you made it into your 50s, you were an old man back then. See, and nowadays, our 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds are emotional infants.
Yeah.
They don't have the capability of understanding the law, let alone writing it. I think we're even putting out lawyers from our elite Ivy League colleges that are political activists that say, F the law, I care more about what I believe the law should be than what the law actually says.
Right. This is why we should stay in our lane. Well, to be fair, Ubisoft, I want to say too, it's not really an American company. I think they're Canadian, French, Canadian, and French. They're not really. They're more Canadian European than American, though they do the Tom Clancy games.
Yeah.
But I did want to make a point though. So I've noticed
real quick. I did give Mark Melnikoff a blue wrench on my channel because I wanted him to drop. Oh, he dropped the Wikipedia article. I was looking for that movie clip that you gave me.
Okay.
That one time, but yeah, the Great Leap Forward. That's a good read for you guys.
I have noticed too, though. I think a lot of this too is coming on the heels of a gaming press, and maybe I'll do a thing on this some future stream where they have bashed two very popular games, and they were really trying to sync, and it didn't work. And one was Black Myth Wukong, which I believe is from a Chinese developer, and the other was Stellar Blade, which was from a South Korean developer. And I'm really starting to wonder if there's some kind of anti-Asian country thing going on here.
I don't
I'm
think
getting a bouquet here. I don't know.
I think
because they don't tell the party line, I guess, or whatever.
What you're seeing there is a correlation, right?
Yeah.
It's not really the Asian culture or the Asian creators that they have a problem with, but the Asian cultures are far more liberated, and I mean that in the traditional term liberal, right? Of showing sensuality in the female form, and
I guess so.
Not bowing to this modern puritanical leftist concept, right? Yeah, right. Cultural Revolution scene from The Last Emperor.
I remember that movie.
Mark has dropped the link. Guys, when you get a chance, check out this clip. It's just a clip from the movie, and tell me that doesn't look exactly like the kind of crap we're seeing today. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And this is why we are repeating it, because people don't know enough about this kind of stuff. But yeah, they're trying to shut down. And look, you see, and commenters, game channels that do more talking about games than we do are pointing out that anything that looks attractive, they want to destroy. Look at Star Wars Outlaws. They took the physical representation of the character, right, that they modeled it off of. They took and uglied her up. And then you got things like Concord, where they clearly are looking to make people as ugly as possible. And they're saying, well, this is representative of the average person. Well, first, the average person doesn't want to look average in their fantasies. When they play a game, they want to be buff. They want to be hot. They want to be cool.
Well,
they don't want to look like themselves. For one thing. And secondly, that is not what you should be aspiring for, to be average. I look at the fat, dumpy-looking dad bod character and go, my character and myself probably need to get to the gym.
Unless you're Homer Simpson, then it works in that game.
Whoa, look at that blubber fly.
Oh, man, we'll never see it again. They did a Simpsons game back in the 6th generation era. Yeah. That was done like Grand Theft Auto, but you played as Homer as the main character. And remember the episode where he got the moo-moo? That was one of your costumes you could unlock, and you could run around with him in the moo-moo. You could run around with him in his underwear, and when he would drive his car, like if you hit someone, he would scream out, "I have no insurance!" Like you hit someone.
That is
like I got all the actors from the show doing the voices in the game too. It was fun, but yeah. All right.